Yes. Big shout out to all of our friends over at the NWI Times, especially my man Joseph Pete, who always stays on top of the most important stories here in the region. This is from them. U.S. Steel, one of America's most iconic brands and one of the companies that has had the biggest impact on the region, will be acquired by a foreign steel worker. That is a foreign steelmaker. That is a foreign steelmaker. Lord, what is wrong with me? Japan-based Nippon Steel. Nippon is Japanese for Japanese. Like basically Japan is called Nippon in Japan. So it is basically Japanese Steel Corp. The world's fourth largest steel maker has reached a deal to acquire U.S. Steel for $55 a share in an all-cash transaction. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Money, money.
Yes. What was that again?
Money, money, money.
Yes, money, money, and money. Yes. This all-cash transaction marks the end of an era. That is a 40% premium in a $14.9 billion deal. That's billion with a B.
Money, money, money.
Yes. Money. Whew. Nippon would take over Gary Works, the Midwest plant in Portage, and indefinitely idled East Chicago 10 steel mills in Northwest Indiana. As a part of its acquisition of U.S. Steel, Nippon said it plans to honor the existing contract with the United Steelworkers and maintain a relationship with the union. Now, for his part, U.S. Steel CEO David Burritt said in a conference call with investors that Nippon plans to continue all of U.S. Steel steelmaking and mining operations in the United States and plans to keep operating all its assets. Under new ownership, the U.S. Steel will retain its name and headquarters in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It will serve as a subsidiary of Nippon Steel. Burritt said that the iconic U.S. Steel brand will live on. Now, U.S. Steel was the first billion-dollar corporation it really founded this city, Gary, Indiana, as a company town in 1906 and was the world's largest steel maker. It suffered decline over the last few decades due in part to a surge of imports of steel from Japan and other countries since the 1970s. U.S. Steel put itself up for sale after getting a bid from rival Cleveland-Cliffs earlier this year. The steelmaker then solicited takeover bids. Its board met over the weekend to review offers and unanimously approved a sale to Nippon, which still must be approved by federal regulators and by United States steel holders. Now, Nippon, for their part, said that they don't need any additional outside financing to close the transaction. It plans to make the purchase with existing bank credits, facilities, and cash money.
Money, money, money.
Yes. Now, Cleveland-Cliffs triggered the sale of its main rival in the U.S. integrated steel industry by making an unsolicited bid to buy it for $7.1 billion in August. Cleveland-Cliffs initially offered $35 in a cash and stock deal. U.S. Steel rebuffed its offer and did not plan to sell for less than $40 a share. I heard, what? Know your worth, girl. You better know your worth. U.S. Steel conducted a strategic review of its options for the last 5 months, weighing several bids before settling on the Nippon Steel offer. It hopes to close the deal in the second or third quarter. Now, the deal will mark the return of Nippon Steel to Northwest Indiana. ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal Corporation previously partnered on the IN Tech and IN Coat joint ventures in New Carlisle. The finishing lines are now owned outright by Cleveland-Cliffs. Nippon used to also own a 49% stake in National Steel, which ran the Midwest plant in Portage before that company went bankrupt in 2002. U.S. Steel bought that Mishawaka-based company dating back to 1929, and in 2003 has run the Midwest plant for over 20 years. Now, the U.S. Steel workers are slamming this proposed deal. United Steelworkers President David McCall has said, "To say that we are disappointed in the announced deal between U.S. Steel and Nippon is an understatement, as it demonstrates the same greedy, short-sighted attitude that has guided U.S. Steel for so long." I heard that. "We remained open throughout this process to working with U.S. Steel to keep this iconic American company domestically owned and operated, but instead it chose to push aside the concerns of its dedicated workforce and sell to a foreign-owned company. That is treason." Well, he didn't say that. That's what I'm saying. I added the treason part. Okay. The USW had backed a deal with Cleveland-Cliffs, a company it's found easier to negotiate with in the past. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. What are our politicians saying about this? What are the people who are here in Northwest Indiana? Well, Frank J. Mervan of Highland has vowed federal antitrust scrutiny of Nippon Steel's proposed $14.9 billion of U.S. Steel. Frank J. Mervan has said, "I am abjectly disappointed that a foreign entity with a history of untrustworthy trade actions is exploiting American workers and members of organized labor to the benefit of executives of U.S. Steel." He is saying that as the vice chairman of the Congressional Steel Caucus, he will be adamant to ensure that all federal antitrust regulators and the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States are scrupulous in their assessment of this transaction. Mayor-elect Eddie Melton, who's coming in here in January, said that he is monitoring the situation and had been in touch with U.S. Steel about the sale to Nippon after it was announced early Monday morning. He said he plans to make the new owners aware of the issues that Gary residents have had with U.S. Steel's flagship mill along the Lake Michigan lakeshore in the Steel City. U.S. Steel is he said, this is what he's saying, U.S. Steel is a vital employer and a significant contributor to our local community. Now, come on now, brother. Come on now. You know doggone well U.S. Steel ain't been a vital employer and significant contributor to the local economy in many years, since they gave themselves that sweetheart tax deal and stopped hiring people from Gary. But okay, let's keep going. He continued, "It is my hope that this deal not only benefits the corporation, but the employees and the greater Gary region. As the incoming mayor of our great city, I am committed to communicating with Nippon Steel about the significant role that U.S. Steel's Gary Works plant has played in their over 100 years in existence, as my administration works toward improving the quality of life for the citizens of Gary. I also want Nippon Steel to be aware of the historical challenges we've faced over the years. These issues include the decline in local property tax, there we go, contributions, and the legacy environmental issues that have impacted our air, land, and water, there you go. It is important that the leadership at Nippon is aware of the community concerns as they shape the future. I eagerly anticipate meeting with the new owners of U.S. Steel and discussing ways we could collaborate. This could mark the beginning of a new chapter, fostering collaboration between the city of Gary and our largest corporation to address long-standing issues. Now, I'm hoping that he keeps that same energy. I hope you keep that same energy, brother. I hope you keep that energy. Okay. Number one, the decline in local property tax contributions. Keep that energy. Okay. If they gonna spend some yen up in these, and so we can keep our schools, and keep our streets and our roads and our infrastructure going, okay, then we might be okay. And the environmental issues. You know, I've been saying for many years, we got a steel factory, one of the biggest polluters on planet Earth, sitting on our water source. You know, Lake Michigan's always on my mind. I can't help it, folks. It is the lifeblood of this region. If it was not for Lake Michigan, none of us would be here. That is a fact. The only reason Gary is here because Lake Michigan is here. The only reason all of us live here is because Lake Michigan is here. And not just us, Chicago, Milwaukee, okay? The whole Chicagoland, Milwaukee region, like this lake has been the lifeblood of the entirety of the Midwest, okay? The Great Lakes in general are, but particularly Lake Michigan. And we've had situations here where the city of Chicago have sued us because our steel mills keep poisoning the lake that they got to swim and drink out of. Well, if it's poisoning them over in Chicago, where they got to drink and swim out of, you can only imagine what it's doing to us. So, brother, keep that same energy. I want to tell Mayor-elect Eddie Melton, keep that energy. Make sure you make them aware of this and what it's going to take for them to help clean up this lake, is so we can like drink and some of these stomach problems may go away. And maybe so many kids born in this region won't have asthma. Now, our current mayor, Jerome Prince, here in Gary, has said that the transaction might present an opportunity for the city to reclaim part of the 7 miles Gary Works occupies along the lakeshore. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Parts of U.S. Steel's flagship mill, like the bar mill that once served construction projects in Chicago and beyond, were long ago supplanted by many mills. That is correct. Take back some of that land, especially if they're not going to pay taxes the way that they used to pay taxes. And they're not going to employ people from Gary the way they used to employ people from Gary. So hopefully, I'm hoping for a combination of the two ideas of our mayor and our mayor-elect. Hopefully, we can get some of that land back, and hopefully they could start kicking in some taxes as well, and start about cleaning up the air and water around here, some of the mess that they've, I guess, inherited from the former owners. You guys know, I end the show, every show, God bless the working class, God bless organized labor. So what is their perspective on this? The Steelworkers Union has been told not to expect any changes. Nippon Steel has said that it planned to maintain a relationship with the United Steelworkers Union and to honor United Steelworkers' existing contract with U.S. Steel, which runs through 2026. Now, the union had backed to sell to Cleveland Cliffs, which they had found to be a good negotiating partner. And this isn't just a local issue. I want you guys to know that this is not just a local story. It really isn't. One of the newer senators, John Fetterman, had this to say about the acquisition of U.S. Steel by Nippon.
I'm standing on the roof of my home right here in Braddock, Pennsylvania, right across the street from the Edgar Thompson plant. And I just have to say it's absolutely outrageous that they have sold themselves to a foreign nation and a company. Can't do that. Steel is always about security as well too. And I am committed to doing anything I can do from using my platform or my position in order to block this. And I'm going to fight for the steel workers and their union way of life here as well too. And we cannot ever allow them to be screwed over or left behind.
Also, J.D. Vance. So that's the Democrat John Fetterman, and the Republican J.D. Vance has said that he's going to interrogate the long-term implications of the American people. This is what I like to see. This is why I call myself a populist. Okay, I've always said I'm a populist, a pro-labor populist, because the Democrats, the Republicans both have corporatists within their parties, and then they have populists. They have people who, at least on the surface, we all know that on some level this is all political theater. This is no different than, WWE SmackDown and, AEW Dynamite, okay, on any given night. But on the surface, some of these politicians do actually give some lip service to class issues and labor issues. And it is good to see that two of the ones who run on caring about labor issues, like John Fetterman and J.D. Vance, are at least talking about how outrageous this is. This isn't the first time one of our mills has been bought by a foreign entity either. Inland Steel was bought by a Dutch company in the 90s, and then sold to ArcelorMittal, Lakshmi Mittal. A man so rich from over in the UK, an Indian guy, Indian or Pakistani guy so rich he spent $100 million on his daughter's wedding. Okay. Now, I talked about the politicians who have a populist slant, but you also have the corporate wing of these parties, which is why you see people like Tommy Tuberville, the senator, I believe from Mississippi or Alabama. He actually executed his U.S. Steel stock options last week before the sale. So obviously he used his seat on the Senate commodity subcommittee, which directly oversees the steel industry. He used his knowledge of what was happening to enrich himself. And again, where is the outrage about this? How much are you seeing about any of this on CNN, on MSNBC, on Fox News, on ABC, CBS? I mean, I try to avoid the corporate media as much as I possibly can. I don't watch it. I only usually deal with independent media and foreign media that's not owned by, billionaires. But how much time have they actually spent on talking about, you have actual senators who have helped to sell America's steel-making output to a foreign entity while they sit on the Senate Commodity Subcommittee, which directly oversees the steel industry? How much have you seen about this? I guarantee you it ain't a lot. These people would lecture you all day about Jonathan Majors slapping his girlfriend around or something, or they'll talk about, hell, athletes. How is it that when an athlete bets on a game like Pete Rose bet on baseball, it is more scandalous than when you have people like Tommy Tuberville and Nancy Pelosi and all these people getting rich while in Congress regulating the companies that they have investments in? How does that make any sense? We get angrier when athletes cheat than we do when our politicians cheat. And that's why I do what I do here on this show. Because obviously, like I said, the corporate media is not going to inform you. And neither are the people who watch the corporate media. I mean, I love a lot of people here, WLTH and other places, but a lot of these people just sit around watching MSNBC all day and CNN all day. A few may watch Fox News. I mean, I've turned on a station here or there in this region, and I've seen, I've heard Fox News babble verbatim, and you just go, oh, God, Jesus Christ, help me. Okay. Now, their job is to maintain a status quo that will allow them to get progressively richer while you get progressively poor. And that is why we deindustrialized in the first place. Was because the powers that be in Washington, D.C. and in corporate on Wall Street and in corporate America decided that American workers, who at that time were the most productive and most prolific on the planet, rebuilt Europe after World War II, rebuilt Japan, were too paid, too healthy, too well fed. Their kids went to two. They resented that you had steel workers who were able to buy houses in their communities and send their kids to good private schools by working in the mill. They resented that people who worked in mills were not desperate, which is how they like workers to be, like they in China. That's why so many of them moved over to China. When we normalized permanent trade relations with China in the 90s under Clinton, another one of the betrayals of Clinton, yet you will have black people who will defend Bill Clinton and his wife to the blue in the face, even after NAFTA, even after PNTR with China. They did this because it was a betrayal to workers, American workers. They sent the jobs overseas because American workers were they actually had a leg up. LBJ used to brag that Americans were the best fed, the healthiest, the most productive. We had the best schools in the world. And we did when we had labor. Unified, strong, organized labor that held these companies accountable and made them pay their workers. And now these same politicians have sold us out and sold out the working classes to the same foreign entities that they told us to be afraid of. They just told us to be afraid of the Japanese a few decades ago. These people lived in fear of the Japanese. Oh, the Japanese are taking us over. The Japanese are taking us over. They went from that to, hey, let's just sell everything to the Japanese real quick. And you would think that after COVID-19 hit us in the doggone mouth, right? Because it really did. COVID really hit us in the mouth. You would think that after COVID hit us in the mouth, these politicians would be smart enough to know that we need a supply chain here, owned by Americans. You cannot have your companies owned by foreigners that make up the most important issues. Like Fetterman said, this is a security issue. This is a security issue. And you're going to sell it to a foreign entity, the largest company in the world, the company that is the reason for this town, Gary, Indiana, existing. Hopefully, J.D. Vance, John Fetterman, Frank Mervan, these types of politicians will get together and make sure that this does not happen. I don't see how Joe Biden gets reelected if it happens. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see how, if he does not get directly involved and condemn this anybody's going to take him anywhere near seriously enough to vote for him. Okay, folks. Now that I've gotten that off my chest. What say you? 219-885-1371. The number again, 219-885-1371. When I get back, we're going to talk about, oh, God, Donald Trump. We'll be right back after these humans.